Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into a book that, well, it fundamentally reshaped how millions view wealth, especially entrepreneurs. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And right off the bat, Robert Kiyosaki kind of hits you with this really provocative question. What if everything you were taught about money was just wrong?
Yeah.
Kiyosaki's perspective, it's interesting. It comes from a really unique upbringing. He had these two contrasting father figures. One was his biological dad, very highly educated, degrees, the traditional path. And the other, his best friend's father, a self-made millionaire, focused entirely on building wealth. And that stark difference, that dichotomy, it really forms the backbone of his, well, revolutionary financial ideas.
Absolutely. And what's key here, I think, is that this deep dive isn't just about, how to make more money. It's deeper. It's really about relearning how to think about money. I mean, the book's impact is undeniable. Over 40 million copies sold globally. It's like the go-to mindset shifting resource you hear about constantly from entrepreneurs, whether they're in Silicon Valley or on Wall Street.
Right. So our mission today, essentially, is to decode the exact mental shifts Kiyosaki presents and maybe explore that question of why, even really smart people often struggle financially. We want to unpack how the wealthy really make their money work for them. And this surprising idea about financial education versus, say, traditional schooling, plus the critical difference between assets and liabilities that seems huge, and this often misunderstood idea about job security.
Exactly. And if you, listening, are maybe looking to escape that paycheck to paycheck trap, as Kiyosaki calls it, and you genuinely want to adopt the mindset of the wealthy, well, this conversation should offer some, frankly, surprising insights and actionable perspectives to maybe start that shift. And perhaps the most fundamental shift Kiyosaki talks about is this difference between working for money and making money work for you. Let's maybe unpack that one first.
Yeah, that's a really powerful distinction right out of the gate, isn't it? I mean, for so many of us, the default is just trade time for money. What does he really mean by making money work for us?
Well, it's the absolute core of the rich dad philosophy. See, most people, he argues, are caught in what he famously calls the rat race, constantly working for that paycheck just to pay bills, cover expenses, and then repeat the cycle next month.
The hamster wheel.
Exactly. The wealthy, on the other hand, focus their energy on acquiring assets, things that generate income without needing their direct, continuous labor. Think about it this way. You might have a corporate executive earning, say, $250,000 a year. Seems rich, right?
Absolutely sounds rich.
But if all their income vanishes the second they stop working that job, they're still financially dependent. They're trapped in that cycle, just maybe at a higher level.
Ah, okay. So income, high income even, isn't the sole indicator of actual wealth then?
Not according to Kiyosaki. He defines wealth by a different metric. How long could you survive financially if your paycheck just stopped tomorrow? So imagine a teacher maybe earning a more modest salary, but let's say they also own some rental properties generating, say, $50,000 a year in cash flow.
Meaning profit after all expenses.
Precisely. $50,000 hitting their bank account from those properties after mortgages, taxes, repairs, everything. That teacher could actually be far more financially free than the high-earning executive. It's about building systems, building assets where money flows to you rather than you constantly having to chase the money yourself.
Wow. That really does make you rethink things, doesn't it? Like the daily grind. Which leads us right into another one of Kiyosaki's, let's say, controversial ideas. The idea that financial education is actually more valuable than a traditional degree. That's a bold claim, especially for people who spent years and maybe a lot of money on college.
It is a bold claim, no doubt, but it's absolutely central to his whole argument. Kiyosaki isn't really saying traditional education is worthless, not at all. He's arguing it's designed primarily to train good employees, not necessarily good entrepreneurs or owners.
Okay, so it serves a different purpose.
Right. Schools teach you skills to get a good job, follow instructions, fit into a system, but they rarely teach you how to, manage money effectively, understand complex tax laws, or how to actually build income-producing assets. He often points to things like that Gallup poll. I think it found something like 87% of U.S. workers feel disengaged from their jobs despite having education, degrees.
That's a huge number.
It is. And you see examples, maybe Ivy League grads even, who find themselves financially trapped, working high-pressure jobs they might secretly dislike. Why? Because they were never taught the language of money. They didn't learn about assets, liabilities, taxes, or crucially, leverage using other people's money strategically to build wealth.
So they're book smart, but maybe not financially literate in the way Kiyosaki means.
Exactly. Educated, yes, but not necessarily financially empowered to build their own path.
Got it. So it's about a different kind of intelligence, a financial literacy. And that brings us neatly to what Kiyosaki calls, I think you mentioned it, the entire game. Understanding assets versus liabilities. This sounds simple on the surface, but I suspect a lot of people get this wrong.
Oh, absolutely. According to Kiyosaki, this is where most people stumble. He's very clear. Rich people buy assets, period. And an asset is simply defined as something that puts money in your pocket.
Okay, like what? Give me some examples.
Sure. Obvious ones are things like rental properties generating positive cash flow, a stock portfolio paying dividends, maybe owning a business that runs without you needing to be there day to day, even intellectual property like a patent, or royalties from a book or software, something that generates ongoing income. That's an asset.
Okay, puts money in your pocket. Makes sense.
Right. Now, most other people, Kiyosaki argues, spend their lives buying liabilities, but they think they're buying assets.
Okay, like your house.
Oh.
Or maybe that brand new car you just bought.
Exactly those things. Your primary residence, the house you live in. While it might, you hope, appreciate in value over the long term, month to month, it typically drains money from your pocket. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, upkeep, repairs.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
So, in Kiyosaki's framework, if it consistently takes money out of your pocket, it's a liability, not an asset, no matter what the bank or society tells you.
And the car.
Oh, the new car is a classic liability. It loses value the second you drive it off the lot, depreciation. Plus, you have monthly payments, insurance, gas, maintenance. It's a money pit. Really grasping this distinction, what truly builds wealth versus what just looks like wealth, is absolutely fundamental to changing your financial future, according to him.
It's a tough pill to swallow, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when, society constantly tells you owning a home is the ultimate goal, the American dream.
It is tough. It challenges deeply ingrained beliefs.
And speaking of challenging conventional wisdom, Kiyosaki also argues that job security is, well, essentially a myth. That's a particularly uncomfortable idea, maybe especially now.
It really is uncomfortable, and it flies in the face of what, many of our parents or grandparents believed and taught us. Seek a safe, secure job with benefits, right?
Right. The stable career path.
But Kiyosaki's rich dad figure really emphasized self-reliance over depending on a company. The argument is that relying on a single employer for your entire financial well-being is actually incredibly risky. We saw this play out starkly during, say, the 2008 financial crisis. Many people with secure jobs panicked. Layoffs, uncertainty, their whole financial world was rocked.
Yeah, that was brutal for a lot of folks.
But investors, people like Ray Dalio or Warren Buffett, whose wealth wasn't primarily tied to a salary from one company, they actually saw opportunity during that downturn. Why? Because their financial foundation was built on assets they controlled, not on a paycheck someone else signed. They could buy assets when they were cheap because others were forced to sell.
So it's really about building your own financial fortress, something independent of any single employer. Is that the idea?
That's exactly the idea. Designing your financial life so your income streams aren't solely dependent on one company's payroll, one boss's decisions. And, it's not just theory. Look at recent trends. That 2022 PwC survey. It found that about 1 in 3 U.S. workers were planning to leave their jobs.
Wow, 1 in 3.
Yeah, and not just because they were burned out, although that's part of it. Many explicitly said they wanted more freedom, more control.
They want to be their own boss, essentially.
Or at least not be totally dependent. It's a clear signal, I think, that people are increasingly recognizing the inherent vulnerability in relying solely on a traditional job for security.
That desire for freedom and control, that ties into another really powerful Kiyosaki insight, doesn't it? The idea that school rewards memorization, but the market rewards courage. In school, you make a mistake, you get points taken off. Bad grade. But in the real world, especially in business or investing, mistakes seem almost necessary.
It's a huge mindset shift. Think about it. Our whole educational system, generally speaking, penalizes errors. You get the red marks, the lower grade. Fear of failure is practically baked in.
Right. Avoid mistakes at all costs.
But in the market, especially if you're an entrepreneur, failure isn't just an option. Kiyosaki argues it's often essential. It's how you learn. You hear this echoed by so many successful entrepreneurs, right? People like Mark Cuban, Barbara Corcoran, Sarah Blakely. They often say things like, failure was my tuition.
Yeah, they frame it as learning experiences.
Exactly. You don't truly learn how to navigate the complex, unpredictable world of money and business by avoiding risk altogether. You learn by managing risk, by trying things, making calculated bets, sometimes failing, and then crucially learning from those mistakes and adapting quickly.
So that deep-seated fear of making mistakes, the one that school kind of drills into us, can actually be a massive financial handicap out in the real world.
Absolutely. Kiyosaki really pushes this idea that financial success often demands the courage to act, to innovate, maybe look foolish sometimes, and to learn from the inevitable missteps. It's not about perfection, it's about progress through action.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that leads perfectly, I think, into our final key point from the book, this powerful concept that the rich invent money.
Hmm.
Now, this sounds a bit mystical, like pulling rabbits out of hats. What does he actually mean by inventing money?
Yeah, it can sound that way, but it's actually very practical. It's not about counterfeiting. It means that wealthy people, especially entrepreneurs, don't just look for existing jobs or existing investments. They actively create opportunities. They identify problems or gaps in the market where others might just see, well, nothing or just complain about the problem.
Okay, so they see unmet needs.
Exactly. They see an unmet need, a gap, a problem to be solved. For instance, maybe someone notices there's a huge demand for affordable, high-quality after-school programs in a specific neighborhood, but nothing exists. They don't just say, huh, someone should do something. They figure out how to create that solution. Maybe they develop a unique curriculum, find a cost-effective way to use community spaces, build a business model around it.
This is building something new.
Precisely. They are inventing a solution, creating value where there was none before. And by doing that, they create a new stream of income, essentially. They invent money by solving that problem and meeting that need. They're not just finding a job, they're creating an economic engine.
Ah, I see. So it's about being an architect of financial solutions,
Sure.
really, not just someone looking to get paid an existing salary.
Yeah.
That definitely broadens your perspective on what earning money can even mean.
Well, that was quite an exploration, wasn't it? Journeying through those really profound mindset shifts from rich dad, poor dad, it really does reinforce that core idea. It's not just about earning more, it's about fundamentally changing your whole relationship with money.
Absolutely. And if we just sort of synthesize the key takeaways, the core shifts we unpack today are incredibly powerful when you put them together. First, that critical difference. Working for money versus making money work for you. Remember that contrast. The high-earning exec still dependent versus the teacher with cash-flowing real estate who's actually free.
Right, freedom defined by time, not just income.
Exactly. Wealth measured by how long you can survive if the paycheck stops. That's a big one. Then that really provocative assertion, financial education is more valuable than a degree. Not dismissing degrees, but highlighting that the school system trains employees, not owners. And we mentioned that startling Gallup poll, 87% disengaged workers, and those Ivy Leaguers feeling trapped because they lacked financial know-how about assets, taxes, leverage.
Yeah. Which led us straight into the entire game, as Kiyosaki puts it. Truly understanding assets versus liabilities. Rich people buy assets, things putting money in your pocket, like rentals, stocks, businesses. Most others buy liabilities, things taking money out, like the draining house or the depreciating car.
Getting that distinction right seems absolutely crucial.
It is. Then we tackled the counterintuitive idea that job security is a myth, thinking about how people like Dalio and Buffett actually thrived in downturns because they relied on systems and assets, not a single employer.
Self-reliance over company reliance. And that PwC survey showing a third of workers wanting to leave for more freedom.
Right. And that tied into the insight that school rewards memorization, but the market rewards courage. How entrepreneurs like Cuban or Blakely see failure as tuition. Real learning happens through managing risk, through action, not just theory or avoiding mistakes.
Learning by doing, essentially, even if doing involves messing up sometimes.
Exactly. And finally, that powerful concept that the rich invent money. Not magically, but by actively creating opportunities, solving problems, seeing gaps, and building new value streams where others don't.
So putting it all together, we really hope this deep dive has helped you, listening, maybe start to reprogram how you think about success and wealth, and maybe even time itself. It's definitely a journey.
It really is. And maybe this raises an important question for you to carry forward, something to ponder. What's just one money belief, something you learned growing up, maybe from family, school, society, that listening to this today you now realize might have been, well, totally wrong?
That's a great question. Take that with you, reflect on it, and maybe continue your own deep dive into these powerful and sometimes challenging financial mindsets. We'll see you next time.